Hey, welcome to a very, very special episode of The Complete Advisor. Before we get rolling, I do, of course, want to remind you, I've got to say this, it's almost obligatory to say, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. Would love to hear your comments, and in fact, drop a comment in there. I will respond. I'm very curious to hear what you have to say, suggestions, compliments, critiques. I take them all to heart. And we'll go from there. But so what we're going to talk about today, why this is very special, is in the podcast so far, we've always talked to someone directly in our industry. And the thing, the heart of the matter is that there are a lot of industries that we share in common, where we have a lot of characteristics where things are in common. And today we are going to talk to, I'm just going to call you the king of referrals in Kansas City. And before I introduce you, Travis, I just want to say a little bit of, we all know how important referrals are. If you can build a business off referrals, I mean, the battle is half won. Mm-hmm. And getting referrals is a symbol. It says a lot about your practice. And what it says is that you do a hell of a job because you're getting referrals. No one's going to refer a dog, right? Unless you're referring dogs. But no one's going to refer a bad experience. Nobody's going to refer somebody that is not good at what they do. They're only going to refer experiences where things were like just knocked out of the park, where the person did an amazing job because their reputation is on the line with that referral. And so it also says, the other thing too, is it also is a symbol of the quality of work that you're doing year over year over year, because I was snooping on you on the internet. So now that I've said all that, let me introduce my guest. So we're going to talk about referrals. We're going to talk about how you do it. And then I've got Travis riding shotgun over here to talk about how that fits into the world of the advisor as well, because that really is what you are, except instead of financial products, Brian Huff, you are you're doing houses. You're just amazing at real estate here in Kansas City. And so welcome. It's great to have you on here.
Great to be here. Thank you.
This is a special treat because I also have house questions too, because I am a homeowner. And then joining me over here, Travis Postlewaite, one of our senior sales VPs here at CreativeOne. You've been here a long time. You work with really kind of the top of the table of our producers here at CreativeOne. So Travis, always good to have you.
It's good to be here, Dennis. Thanks for having us. Finally, my inaugural thing on your podcast.
On this podcast.
We
when we were just playing around about like 4 or 5 years ago, we did a little episode that we'll just let lie in the dust pan of history. Okay, so Brian, let's talk a little bit about real estate. So right now, real estate, especially in Kansas City, and I assume most everywhere. I just read in the Wall Street Journal, they had an article, and it said one of the problems in real estate is that people aren't moving, so their inventory's tight.
Correct. I don't read the news anymore because so much of it is negative, right? And I want to control what I can control and avoid what I cannot control. But statistically in our business, yes, we're seeing some change. Mm-hmm. And simply put, I mean, we have fewer buyers in the market this year compared to last year due to, mostly interest rate change, correct? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But we also have fewer homes in the market, fewer sellers, right? So we have inventory issues.
Yep.
So ultimately, fewer buyers, but even fewer sellers. What's happening to our home prices here local? Continuing to go up, right? And I don't see that inventory issue being solved anytime in the next 1 to 2 years. I don't.
One of the issues that we have in the financial services industry is we have that challenge of the do-it-yourselfer. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying in your industry, not so much somebody that's going to put a shingle out there that says for sale by owner, which we'll talk about that in a second. Mm-hmm. But when the market is so hot like real estate, there's got to be so many amateurs that are jumping into the water. Hey, I can become a real estate agent.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that?
We've seen that for 4 years, yes. And, to even go a step further, the challenge that we're having, and statistically, we're down 30 or 40% on the number of sellers in the market this year compared to the previous 2-3 years. So it's like you have more people, more licensed agents competing for less opportunity.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like panning for golden nuggets, is really what it comes down to right now when you're looking for seller opportunities.
Except there's a ton of people standing along the shore right now.
There's a ton of people along the shore. And, we're in a business where listings, home sellers are leverage, right? And my group is we're very listing heavy. That's how we control our marketplace. We're the top number 1 listing group in the 5 states. So that is our focus. So this is a challenge that we've had in the last year that I haven't had in 16 years.
Well, so this is where, and then I'm going to ask Travis a question because I feel like I'm ignoring him. So this is where I think referrals, and then I want to talk to you about referrals because you're a referral-based business. This is where referrals, in my mind, have got to be crucial because anytime. So I like to look at property online. I do it. It's the weirdest habit. So I'm either on Zillow or Realtor, and I'm looking at stuff. And every time I pull something up here in Kansas City, it says pending. Mm-hmm. And so I'm thinking in my mind, with real estate so hot, inventory so low, that you've got to have that connection of, hey, Brian Huff's the guy you got to talk to. Yeah. And then Brian Huff probably has a whole catalog of people that, Brian, if you ever see a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I need you to know. I need to know that. So referrals have got to become even. It's just got to be like lifeblood, right?
And that is so true. Referrals are everything in our business. And I'll rewind. I mean, my first 3 years in real estate, I didn't even have a grasp of referral business. What I was doing is it would kind of be like nitty gritty cold calling, door knocking, for sale by owners, right? So knocking on doors of for sale by owners that say, I want to do this myself. And expired listings, which were listings that failed to sell with another real estate agent that I'm calling on, getting my foot in the door and trying to earn their business. And let's just say that I stuck to that business. I had great success for my first 3 years, built a great business, became top in the region, but it was a grind. It was a lot of work, right? And let's just say I continued that business this way. In today's market, I would have zero opportunity because there are very few for sale by owners. And the for sale by owners that are out there are likely selling. You do not have expired listings because homes are selling, right? Yep. You don't have a lot of these cold call opportunities because a lot of the lists and times have changed. So if I was doing business that way, it'd be really hard to have any success, period. But when I shifted my focus to the referral business and, let's just say change my mindset of my lead generation and my focus into the referral side of it, and that's my prospecting, that's what's growing my business and where we're having success where a lot of others are not.
So Travis, when you hear Brian say that, out there grinding, and that is true. Like if you're willing to grind on something, you can have success, but you're going to wear yourself down to a little nub like one of those little pencils when we were kids, if kids even use pencils anymore. But so Travis, do you see that you've seen the same thing on when you're working with advisors that work with your team, right?
You absolutely do, each and every day. You look at the most common way that our advisor in the field can go out and acquire new leads, new lead generation techniques. What we see, Dennis, is seminars and workshops. Yep. Brian and I were talking earlier, Sullivan's, Jay Gilbert's, Bristol here in Kansas City. What a grind that is to spend every Tuesday and every Thursday night from 6 to 9 p.m., actually probably earlier, getting there, getting the event set up, working your financial services practice all day long, and then spending 3 hours to try to convince someone, a resident of Johnson County, why you're the best financial advisor out there, whether you're talking Social Security claiming strategies, tax reduction strategies. You're up there on stage trying to bribe them with a piece of chicken, steak, whatever your flavor is, and waving your flag and saying, I'm the best. And he's trying to get you to book an appointment. Like, what a grind that must be day in and day out. Versus flipping the switch a little bit and enjoying what you do, enjoying the people you do that you do business with, and actually taking care of them. Doing a good job, such a good job for them that they ultimately look you in the eye and say, "Hey, my friend needs help, my family needs help." Like it's a complete contrast of businesses. Yeah. So the way I go about business, I'm a relationship-oriented person. I would definitely gravitate towards a referral-based practice, whether it's in real estate, financial services, whatever other type of business that's out there. So there's no need to grind. And there's nothing against the grind. Again, going back to seminar and workshop business in our space. But when there's other alternatives that are available, let's explore them, take a look at it, which is what we kind of wanted to do today.
Yeah. So absolutely. So Brian, let's go back to you. So you're out there grinding away, working the streets, beating your feet, walking up and around, talking to the people, doing the hard work. When did you pivot to referrals, and what did you start doing? Walk us through that. Walk us through maybe that day you had the epiphany.
It was year 3, and it actually happened the first time I received and completed a referral. Okay? So I remember it like it was yesterday. Sean Cates, who was a client of mine in Overland Park, Kansas, referred me his brother-in-law.
Nice.
So, and you got to keep in mind, this is 3 years where I'm going and competing with some top agents, going through my salesmanship and reselling, right? And going through because they don't know me from Dan, and I'm competing with several different agents. So I went in there to give my appointment, and I remember being stopped about 10 minutes into it saying, Brian, you don't need to go any further. I'm ready to move forward. Right? You were referred by my brother. You did a great job for him, and it just hit me like that. And that was really literally the aha, tuning fork point for me to say, wait a minute, this is an easier way of doing business. And literally the thing I enjoyed most and realized that time is I put in 20% of my energy and effort into that client that I did a client that would have been non-referral based, right? Just with the trust factor and the process. So that was my turning point.
So what did you do then? So you have the epiphany and it's like, okay, this referral thing is awesome. Now what?
Then I needed to figure out a system. So what I did is I started searching seminars, coaching, client options here that were working by referral systems. I think I went to 6-8 seminars the first year. I listened to every podcast I could. I was picking brains of successful real estate professionals. I found one mentor and program that really did great for me, and it's a company called Buffini & Company. It's a work by referral, and they're the largest small business coaching company in the entire U.S.
Nice.
So he's a mentor of mine, and they gave me a system and a plan along with coaching and accountability to kind of create this. This is still a prospecting method, right? People think that I'm working by referral. I don't need to put the action or the time in. Well, no, you still put the time in. We're still all kind of in a contact sport, meaning we have to go do the things to get the results. But it created a system for me.
So you get the system. Were you resistant to starting on it, or was that first experience of a referral just so much of a shot of adrenaline? You're just like, I'm all in.
I was only 3 years into the business, doing great, but at that point, only 3 years, I was already so burnt out that I was willing to go all in on this, okay, and say, what can it hurt, right? Because I don't want to be working like this. I don't want to wake up every Tuesday making 65 cold calls every morning, wondering where my next client will come from. And I don't want to do this in 5 years, and I definitely don't want to do this in 10 or 20 years. So I didn't really have much resistance, no.
You were a convert right from the get-go. Road to Damascus kind of experience.
Now, the hard part for me is, shuffling and let's just say kind of, altering my mindset to this referral base. It was hard for me letting go of the old techniques that I had done, right? And that was still the cold prospecting and the door knocking and the things that were yield me immediate paychecks that I was good at doing.
Let's dive into that just a little bit more. So it was a little scary because that you'd had success doing this, and now you're going to kind of let go of that to start doing these other.
Correct. Just change being hard, for me, because this was a complete different paradigm shift, right, of the way that I was going to generate business.
So with referrals, so let's talk a little bit about how you're doing referrals, because one thing you said just a second ago is a great thing, and something we did a podcast, shameless plug for everyone to go back a couple episodes with Charles Sawyer, where we talked about referrals, and he's been in the business for
30 years.
30 years. He said that the last year they got one person a new client that just happened to hit their website. Otherwise, it's all referrals.
Yeah.
And I think the assumption, an automatic assumption with referrals, so fact check me here, I think the automatic assumption with referrals is that, well, I don't have to do anything. I can just sit here, bring on yon referrals to me. I will just sit. Yeah. Charles is one of the hardest working guys I know, and he does not miss an opportunity to remind you about referrals. So tell us about your referral process, because Travis told me that part too about you.
Yes, because I think the biggest misconception with referrals is, number one, Brian, it takes many, many years to get results. And that's not true, right? I mean, my second year in the business working the referral system, I had over 30 closed referrals. Year
Nice.
Number 2, right? Consistent. And then again, just the fact of how much time you're inputting or process here. And I'll tell you this, when I started working the referral system, you want me to kind of just tell you how my system
Absolutely.
works? Okay. So I like simple. I want to, I want everything simplified, obviously, to give me bigger results here. So my process is a 30-point touch system annually. Okay. And again, it's simple. It's just not easy, because the simple outlines the process and how it's going to work. The easy is the consistency of doing the activities, right? And I get all the time, Brian, how'd you become the number one realtor out of 19,000? And I say, guys, it's as simple. It's consistency with me. I'm a machine. You can count on me. It's going to get done. It's going to be done consistent. And I care and I do it at a high level, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, the 30-point touch system is going to be as simple as 12 physical mailings a year. So I do a physical mailer on the first of each month. I do an email campaign on the 15th, right? So that's 24 contacts a year per contact, right? 24 touch points. I do 3 minimum party invitations a year to each of my clients, and I do 3 minimum phone call contacts to each client annual.
Personal contacts?
Personal contacts. Now, it may be me, depending on who you are in my database and where you rank, or it may be an associate of mine contacting you on my behalf, but those are personal contacts. So it's a pretty simple system there, because I think people just have this, people complex it way too much, right? Mm-hmm. And you don't need to do so. I mean, it's having a system and knowing how it's going to work and not wondering when you get in the office what's happening next. I mean, but just getting into the action and doing it.
Now, that was very humble the way you said that, because I'm throwing a flag on the play right here. Because there's a lot of work there. And you said that, but there's a lot of work. So a couple things that I can see, and Travis, hop in on this, but from working with advisors is, one, I can tell then that you have to have a good data management system.
Yep.
You've got to continue the consistency, and that's the thing too. Discipline. There's a lot of discipline in what you just said. There also has to be, because of the volume of business that you're doing. So discipline, delegation. You're also hiring people then, because I looked, you have, I think maybe 9, 10 people. Am I about right?
Yeah, we have 10 agents and we have 7 full-time staff members.
Okay. So that also means, you're hiring, which means adding people to a team, and you just can't hire someone. You have to bring them into your culture.
Correct.
And get them, all the wagons pulling in the same direction.
Yeah.
Then that also means that you're doing some kind of, training with them. Mm-hmm. But then also, you've got to do the people management. Now, I'm not necessarily saying you, but you, in a way, you are, because you're filling up underneath you there. So you made that 30-point system sound ridiculously easy. So when you hear that and you think of the advisors that you work with that do referrals, tell me what you hear that's similar, and what do you think that?
Well, actually, Dennis, I'm going to flip it the other way. I'm thinking of the ones that don't.
Nice.
Because the touch point in the system, know the tools and resources that we have available.
Yep.
We have that 30-point, that 50-point, whatever you want to use system in play. Right here. Yep. At all the financial advisors we do business with. It's available to you here at CreativeOne. And I'm thinking about the times that they don't. Because it costs money. Yep. What do we always say? You need to spend money to make money. Mm-hmm. But to use a CRM, to put together some sort of relationship management software, at the end of the day, that is not that much money. But I think the most important part is the hiring. I think that's the key component. Because I think I asked someone on your staff the other day, actually, who does the emails? Which is kind of what spurred this conversation for me to hit you the other day about doing this. It's I know you as the entrepreneur, the rainmaker of the Huff Group in Kansas City. You're not personally hitting the buttons or uploading it. Yeah. You've developed the concept. Yeah. In the execution, but just finding that person to do that. And I think a lot of the financial advisors out there, they don't have that person, Dennis, and they need that person. And think about what the training we had earlier this week, what Mark Roberts talked about. First of all, you need to hire yourself an admin assistant, and then your next hire needs to be that marketing person, that marketing manager. These are common mistakes, and it's so cool to see the parallels between the two businesses.
Absolutely.
That most advisors are not doing. Now, the ones on the wall back behind us, they've got someone in play and in check. So that's where I come back and challenge the ones that aren't. Think about these concepts. Think about the tools and resources at your disposal that we can provide you, and we can even help hire those people for you.
Yeah. Speaking of hiring, so you started somewhere. So when I say started somewhere, so you're out there grinding. Did you have an assistant then, or did you add assistants after?
I added assistants year 4. I added one assistant, and then I added.
You got married?
Well, that was my second assistant. So I had my first assistant, and I was hesitant on that.
But that's after post-referral?
That would have been post-referral.
Okay.
Because when I started doing the referral system and I was getting consistent results, right? Mm-hmm. And as the business was growing, let's say 20, 25% a year, I knew that I had to grow with that growth, right? And I mean staff and help.
So this literally, for those people that are just catching the episode, which don't forget to like and subscribe, but this is our first time meeting. So I'm going to guess, just based on what you've done, that letting go of stuff especially at the beginning, was probably kind of hard. Because you strike me as somebody who controls everything you can control, because I dig that.
Yes.
But like control what you can control, because then it gets done the way you want it done.
Yeah.
So how hard was it to hire the first person and start to offload some responsibilities?
It was a challenge, because you are correct, right? Mm-hmm. I am a control freak here, but I would say after about 6 months of battling what I wanted to do and what I wanted to control, I came up with a rule, and I've stuck to this every day since, okay? Anything that comes to my plate and I make a decision right then, no putting it on the back burner, I'm going to do it, I'm going to deny it, or I'm going to delegate it, right? And that's a rule I've lived by. Every decision that comes to me, Travis hits me up about this podcast. I said, here's your thing. I'm not going to tell Travis I'm going to get back to him tomorrow. I'm going to decide right now whether I will do it, I will deny it, or I will delegate it. And, the reality is when we're hiring on help, an assistant or a marketing person, what are you really buying? I mean, you're ultimately hiring them and buying them to buy your time back. Mm-hmm. And then you look at that and you say, wait a minute, I now have an assistant, so that gives me an extra 15, 18 hours in the week. What do I plan to do with my 15 or 18 hours? With me hiring an assistant or additional people, if I get an additional 3 to 5 hours, I have the option to dedicate it to the family, I have the option to dedicate it to a day of golf, or I have the option to dedicate it to lead generation prospecting. If I really want to grow my business, that's where my focus needs to be, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'm the rainmaker, so I'm the lead generation machine, because your business, my business, we are all one and the same. It's like, we are in this lead generation referral type of business here, because, you can be the greatest financial advisor out there, but if you don't have clientele or people that trust you and sign up to do it, what good is it?
Yeah. I love the show Shark Tank. And what I like about that, one of the things they always ask is client acquisition costs. And the concern that no matter what the business is, how are you getting that next person through the door, the next client? So a question back to you then is, how have you, as you've built the practice and you've added staff, how do you make the determination when you need to add someone?
If I'm, let's just say if I have a stressor within the business, and then I know it's time to grow, okay? And recently I brought in a second marketing person, like an event coordinator. I call him the wow factor, okay, is what I call them. So this is like unexpected extras, because Sandy, who was first in line, was having a challenge getting the tasks done on a weekly basis, okay? So that was growth that I experienced, that I said, okay, now I need to get her help here, because things aren't maybe getting done 100%, or maybe not done to the quality I expect. Okay.
So here's the crazy thing. So what I love about this is you being what we were talking about before we turned the mics on, the parallels of the industry, but then, hearing these same things from a different perspective, even though we're basically the same. When I hear what he just said about the stressor, I think of, I'm going to name drop him. Also, we did a podcast with him too, Mark Roberts. Mm-hmm. And Mark, if you hadn't met him, he's here in Kansas City, huge practice, hires it sounds just almost identical to what you said. And I asked him the same question. And he said, I can't remember who in the office, but there's one person that that's kind of the canary in the coal mine. When that person's stressed out, that's a sign that we need to take some things off our plate. Things are getting we need to add somebody into the staff.
It's funny you mentioned Mark, because the other thing I was thinking about that he said earlier this week at the training, which is very relevant to what Brian is. He's like, remember Mark said, I'm only a financial advisor 30% of the time. The other 70%, I'm a business owner. And under that 70%, I'm focused on the people. Like you just said, the canary, when he or she gets stressed. I'm focused on the technology at my disposal to make our jobs easier. And then I'm focused on the marketing. Yep. So that was his 70-30 split, which may not be exactly what yours is, but my guess is it's pretty similar along those lines too.
I like that you said that, Trav, because I'm a civil engineer, so I'm a numbers nut. So, my personal goal every year, and I know because I just revisited, and it really does break down to this simple, right? To me, my goal is I want to net $3 million a year. So I know that I need to do personally 175 transactions, 550 as a group. But that's also broken down to how many contacts I need per referral. So for me, it's 20 contacts per one closed referral, right? These are numbers I've been tracking. So my operation Monday through Friday, and the business side of it, is my 15 either face-to-face, but mainly phone call direct contacts between me and somebody in my database, right? And that is the business part of it. Now, you spend most of your time in the job. So that's negotiating contracts, going on appointments, right? Putting out fires, dealing with this. But I tell everybody on the team, I said, here's your thing, guys. I may not have sold a home today, right? Or I may not have, I may have had a couple fires put out, but I made my business 15 contacts today. So I know that that's going to be the return here in the future, right? Of the referrals that are coming in that get me where I need to go. So it's like, the business day. And I joke with the team sometimes. I say, I know you sold 4 homes and you had a great day. You've been running around. You actually failed today because you didn't make any of your contacts, right? Or you didn't stick to your plan. So, that's part of
it. We better be sure to get him on the creative socials so he can report back to the staff that he made his 15 contacts today.
I love it.
And another thing, if somebody's going to take one thing from this podcast, your business, my business, it's like what's most important is to train your clientele how you work, right?
Let's talk about that.
To explain to them because, I think what it is, you need to explain to everybody you work with that, this is how I run my business, right? I rely on you for future business. I work hard at it. Of course, we take great care of you, but we work referral-based. If you know of anybody in my business that's looking to buy or sell real estate here, keep me in mind, and this avoids me from having to spend my days looking for buyers and sellers or new business, but actually providing a high level of customer service like I did to you. And, that my slang, Trav, how many times have you heard this, right, is every contact I make, and remember, I'm never too busy for your referrals.
He told me that.
So 15 times a day I need to say that, or I'm not allowing myself to go home.
It just goes back to the consistency that you said 5 or 10 minutes ago, regardless of what it is. You have your speech, you have your elevator plug that you're going with, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
So it goes back to, I guess we're name dropping today a little bit on the podcast, Dennis.
As long as it ties to an episode.
Charles Sawyer, once again. We kind of referenced him earlier, Brian, and it's kind of funny. I'll tell you what he is. If you walk in his door as a customer or a prospect, he will tell you, and I will not do this speech justice, but number one, if I sell you a securities product, I'm going to charge you a fee of X.
Yeah.
If I sell you an insurance product, the insurance company is going to pay me a commission. And the third way that I get paid based on your referrals.
Yeah.
Again, that's the abbreviated component of that. But everyone who walks in the door, just kind of like you, I'm never too busy with referrals. That's what he tells everybody.
It's great.
Regardless of who you are, whether you've been in the office 1 time or 50 times, you're going to get that speech.
And I told the group the other day, I said, guys, here's a thing also, you need to remind people how you work, that either I'm never too busy for your referrals, or if you hear of anybody, keep me in mind, we'll take, but your contact is not actually a counted contact unless you do some sort of referral plug on that phone call or face-to-face meeting, right? Because you could have a great conversation, you're talking, golf days and so forth, but if you don't bring it back to remember me or keep me in mind or remember this is how my business works and I rely on you, it's not a counted contact.
I love that. Yeah. I've seen this like forever in this industry, is a lot of people go, pretty much all of them, but they're not doing referrals or they think it doesn't work. It's because they want to just sit back. They're looking for some magic pill.
Yeah.
And they're just expecting, well, I'll just sit here and people will refer.
Yeah.
And what I've seen from what you've said, and when I think about Charles and other advisors, is they will just like what you said every time. Yeah. I will remind you every time that this is how, and I'm consistent. And I think it goes back for some advisors in our side, and probably maybe for realtors too. I think part of it might be a self-esteem, like I'm not bringing enough value to be I'm valuable enough that you should refer me.
Yeah.
And then they feel bashful about saying it like it's something dirty, and instead it's like, this is how I do my business.
Yeah. And another tuning fork point was years ago when I had a good friend of mine that I found out purchased with another agent. So I had to call him, right? I said, hey, no hard feelings. I'm going to love you for life, but can I ask the reasoning? And you know what he told me? He said, Brian, you're a high-volume real estate agent. I've seen all the business you promote and everything. I just figured you were too busy. And that was when it was like, ding, for me, right?
Is that where you came up with the line?
That was practically it. Yeah, I did a little borrowing and plug and play from some other sources. But to me, that's what I want to remind people, because people see this top agent, this and that. Yeah. I want to let them know that, hey, no matter what, this is how I make my living, and you referring me people, I'm never going to be too busy. We're going to provide them a high-level service. And like I said, set that up that way and have people understand how your business works. So if you miss that opportunity, explain it. I think when you're doing business the first time, you've missed the biggest opportunity of them all.
So I want to advance it a little bit. Okay. So we've talked about, we've got the referrals, the names that are there and who we're going to go and how we're going to go about it. But there has to be some substance behind it, right?
Exactly.
Now you have to prove
Yeah.
why you're so good and how you're going to do what you're going to do. So the short story, Dennis, is, I'm a personal client of Brian's, right? And I will refer anyone and everyone who needs real estate or property in the 5-state area. He's the guy. And one of the reasons why, there's many, but like, you make business easy for me. You make the transaction easy for me. There's things that you do within your firm that make the consumer's life very easy in that process. And this can be taken from the financial advisor's standpoint too. We're all busy human beings. We want to make these transactions as seamless and as smooth as possible. You do that within your firm. So that's kind of where I said I wanted to advance the conversation about, like, what are some of the things behind the scene that like make a guy like me want to refer you? And I'm just thinking of like the staging and just the little things that no one even thinks about. Now, the staging and the different things behind that, or the financial advisors need other tools and resources. But again, there's substance behind what you're doing that makes you want to refer. If you say, I'm looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, he's your guy. Well, why? He's going to make it so easy on you.
That is something when we did the podcast with Charles, who's like a referral king too.
Yeah.
He talked about service, because you can be a swell person and you can ask for referrals, but if you're not bringing the game, if you're not
the
good
service
at your
and
game,
the value.
Yep, the service and the value. You're just you're pretty face.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
So our team mission statement, and this is a big one, and I'm not going to say mission, this would be more of a core value, but it's to set an expectation and exceed an expectation, right? To inform, advise, and communicate with a high level of customer service, throughout the process. And, I say it this way, it's like, there are 3 feet to a stool, right? So, obviously a sit-down stool. You have sales and marketing is the first leg or foot of that stool. That is 3 times more important than the other 2 legs. But you also have customer service, and then you have the financial part of it, right? You need to manage your finances and make sure you're in order. And the customer service part is as big a deal as any. And I think, the biggest part of that is setting an expectation and exceeding an expectation. And when I think customer service, I think the primary customer service method is always just communication, right? Because what are people thinking, especially in today's world, because I think people are skewed, because when they think of communication with their clients, they're thinking email updates, right? Or they're thinking, and that's not it. Communication is real communication. That could be a video message personalized. Phone calls. I love making phone calls, and in half the phone calls I leave a voicemail and I get a text message back, but it's still my voice on the voicemail. They know I took the time out of the day to do that, right? And people are craving some of the older school methods now just because of all the buzz and the distraction and the technology. So, the biggest part of it, of course, is having communication methods with your client, right? And it doesn't have to be overcomplicated. It's like in my business, once somebody goes under contract to the day we close, they're going to be getting a phone call from me every Wednesday. We have 2 unexpected extras that we pop off or drop by to them through the process, right, that they didn't expect. So moving tape with Huff Group tape and some moving boxes,
Nice.
Once we get through acceptance. And then, of course, kind of a moving prep kit right before closing. So these are things you can incorporate as you kind of get it down and, you go through the process. It doesn't need to be overly done or complicated. This is as you kind of advance the stage of it. But just, a couple points of it, of course, is the biggie on communication and some of the unexpected extras.
Do you, I'm going to switch gears for a quick second. So you have a huge database of people you've done business with. So, and you mentioned a couple client events, but I want to ask you about client events here in a second. But do you have, how do you segment? Did you go through, you don't have to tell me specifically, but there's a couple ways you segment your client base. But first of all, you do segment your client base.
I do.
Because Travis and his trailer house are not going to be the same as somebody down on the plaza.
I do, but it's based on who referral basis, okay? Who has referred me business.
Really?
So I kind of have it set up like you almost look at it as a bullseye, right? A dartboard.
Yeah.
And my so I have it categorized A pluses, A's, B's, and C's. So my A plus is that's my lifeline, right? Though that is my core bullseye group that refers me most of my business. So those for me is somebody looking back in a 2-year period that has referred me at least 2 closed transactions. So I have about 88 pluses, and those are the ones that get most of my attention, right? Those are the ones that get very continuous pop buys that arrive at the front door, invitations, like we're doing an invite today for a big sport up at, or a big suite up at Sporting Kansas City, June 24th. So get as much face-to-face time with them as I can, because those are my proven database clients that are going to kick me the most consistent results. So A pluses are my 2+ referrals over 2 years closed. My A's are 1+ referral closed within the last 2 years. My B's are clients that I've worked with or are part of my database that would likely refer me if asked. And then C's would be like new additions that I'm bringing in and kind of getting into this funnel system to see what they can produce. So it's all 100%, let's just say, done on results. Okay. And I don't care if they live in a $200,000 house or a $3 million house, this is based on results is what this is.
Like it.
And it's tricky because you have to track your people in your database because it's always the ones you think and want to be your A+ multiple referral clients that just aren't wired that way, right? And sometimes it's the ones that you say, there is no way that they're going to refer me anybody that can refer me 5-6 deals a year and be worth 6 figures alone, right? So it's 100% tracked and done on results, referral-based, okay?
I like it.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So client events then, what do you look for a client event? What are you doing? You mentioned Sporting KC.
We do 4 a year. But again, we have 2 that are A and A+ only. So those are going to be, the smaller, more expensive events. And then we do 2 that are open to everybody. So for example, this year we did a exotic animal expo. Trav, you were at the exotic?
I missed it.
So Exotic Animal Expo. So we rent a big venue out in Lewisburg. We have a zoo from out of town come in, and they have like 18, 20 crazy different exotic animals.
Cool.
And I did this because I always want to be different, right? I don't want to do the same, theme bred by the park here that you see a lot of real estate agents do. So this is something that people don't get an opportunity. I mean, you're holding lemurs and kangaroos, and giant pythons and tortoises.
That's brilliant from the social media angle.
It is. And people love it. So we had about 1,100 that came out, and this is a big event. I mean, it cost me about $30,000, $35,000, but it's 1,100 people that came out. But not only that, I sent out 6,000 invitations, and it gave me a reason to contact and touch everybody, right? And let them know why I'm inviting them. It's like, hey, I do this for you. This is my way to give back as a thank you for all of your trust, support, and referral thoughts.
Do you get that? Do people ask you about getting to the higher tier? Like, hey, I saw you guys were at Sporting KC. How do I get in club?
They do. I was a little hesitant on that years ago to post photos and tours of some of these events, like a Mahomes meet and greet that we did, or a Sporting Kansas City suite. And I just decided to put it out there. I said, well, yeah, this is actually a VIP event, based on whom has been referred. So, yeah, it almost creates a little bit of a competition, or urgency to get your referral.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So the Exotic Animal Expo, we're doing the Boulevard event June 3rd. So we rent out both floors of the Boulevard and do food and drinks and entertainment. So that's kind of a dress-up, jazz night for some of our A and A pluses. And then we do a summer barbecue, so that's kind of an open to everybody, bring the kids in, and then we do a kind of a pie party concert event at the end of the year. So I do 4 of them, and I try to set them up quarterly, more or less. And the reason I do that is it gives us an easy reason to make contact with our database.
Now that you have, since you have the staff that you've built out, do you have them, when someone comes in, do you have them grind? Are they grinding?
They're grinding.
Good.
Yeah, they're grinding. Everybody on our group has work ethic. It's a healthy culture. They know what we expect, and they know that it's about the people, right? They know, and they've really embraced this referral mentality.
I want to ask you another question. You were mentioning your numbers.
Yeah.
And so Charles was talking a little bit about waking up on a Sunday night, realizing I need to do X amount per day.
Yeah.
And then having that, having to keep that up, having to wear that and do it. And he said that one of the things he does is he believes in momentum. Like if you don't slow the train down, you don't have to then try and get it going again if it kind of if you run into maybe a dry patch or something like that. Does that make sense? Does that resonate? Or you
100%, yeah. I call it rest run cycle.
Rest run.
So what that means is we're in seasonal sales cycle in our business, right? Spring, fall, everything's different seasons. So we call it rest run, meaning when we're in a slower period of real estate for us, right? Meaning, we're coming out of winter, we're going into winter. That's our run cycle because we have less real estate to be done. We're going to run with our activities, make more contacts and amp those up 200-300%. And then as the results come in, meaning you have more clients to service due to these activities, that's when we're going to rest. But I make it very clear. I say this isn't a run-stop cycle. This is a rest-run cycle, meaning that you're doing 30 to 40% of your activity goal. Not zero, right? Because if you stop them completely, you're right, you kill that momentum, and to get that train moving again is going to take you a long time.
How scary was that when you first started, while you were figuring that out, or did you have somebody that kind of took you under their wing?
And no, I created that rest-run cycle a couple of years ago just to try to get around the guilt of not having time in the spring, when I'm very busy to do this and put it on with the team. So, I'm always so nervous about not doing my activities and what that's going to result in that, you can count on me. They're going to get done.
So these activities, do you look back at the Buffini training that you still consistently do, right?
Yeah.
As a business coach, a lot of that, there's the accountability portion. What does that look like with that consulting group?
So, coaching and accountability is a big deal for me, right? I require each of our team members to be in personal coaching, and I do one-on-one coaching with each of my team members monthly, right? How are we doing? What's working? What needs help? What do we need to change? What ideas do you have? But in my coaching personally, I have a financial coach, a business coach, and then I have kind of like a health coach, right? Yeah. So a lot of coaching, but it's accountability, right? When you hear coaching, it's really accountability. How are we doing? And one real accountability point that I incorporated this year, knowing that we're going to come into a challenging market, just with less inventory, meaning we need to do more activities for less results, was more or less a weekly snapshot of their activities. So every Sunday at 5, they get multiple dings from me here as a reminder to send me a screenshot of their weekly activities. Calls, handwritten notes, pop-bys, right? And then any one-on-one or business-to-business meetings.
Do you have a point system for it? This sounds familiar to me when I first got in the business like a million years ago.
Not really a point system, but what it is, it's kind of like a CRM formatted homepage that it looks like a goal page. So when you hit the results, you get it. We created a simple CRM. So it's just something that gives you a target. It's a big visual to know how people are doing because I want them to obviously know their activity. I want them to track their activities.
Absolutely.
So Dennis, that kind of, talk to our advisors that have agencies and downlines, sub-advisors, sub-agents. So that's kind of something that we can think about and process as a takeaway of like, how does that look and how do these guys hold their staff accountable?
Yeah. I think one of the things we're taking away from our conversation with Brian is you got to hold yourself accountable first.
Yeah.
And be pretty doggone diligent in what you're doing because it's hard to be. You can't ask someone else to be disciplined if you're not disciplined yourself.
Well, that accountability, Trav, when you're getting your group involved, right? Yeah. I mean, let's just say activity spark activity, right? Energy sparks energy. So it's like getting everybody involved in seeing this and then bringing to the light on a Tuesday team meeting that, my goodness, guys, together we made 430 contacts this week, right? It's just going to keep everybody in high gear and keep that momentum high.
Tuesdays are the day, did you say?
We do team meetings Tuesdays.
I like it. A couple last questions. We'll kind of bring this conversation to a close here. And this has been fantastic. I've got like a million more, and I wrote a couple things down too. I like that the do it, deny it, or delegate it.
Yeah.
So with with your practice as you've been building referrals, if you were going to look and give out any words of wisdom to our side of the fence, to financial advisors, what do you got for us?
I would say in person, faces take you places, okay? So get your face in front of your database, whether that is in person at a client event, whether that is, the power of technology now. It's a e-video, and you guys have the studio and this and that. You just have to do that consistently. Faces take you places, right? So I think that's the biggest of them all.
Geez, there's another one I'm writing down. I like that one. I love phrases.
Yeah. And I know people don't like it, and they don't like to see their own face, and they don't like to put their own face out there. It's like, just do it because that is the honest truth of it.
Well, if I think back about your 30-point touch point system, 12 pieces of direct mail, 12 emails, 3 phone calls, if I had this right, and then invitations to client events. Like, you're appealing to different audiences because some people like the snail mail, some people like the phone calls. Like,
correct.
You don't know exactly how that consumer, that customers wired, and now you're touching them from so many different ways. And I still love kind of the old school, which made me think about the faces take you places commentary.
Yeah, I like it.
We're all of us, Dennis, as you know. This is a financial services, real estate, our relationship-oriented business.
It's relationship, yeah.
And I love that phrase as well.
It's consistency. You just want to keep your name and top of mind, right, for them if they hear anybody looking in my business to buy or sell real estate.
So before I know you, Dennis, you were trying to wrap it up a little
Well,
bit.
I have 3 more questions.
Well, I've got a billion, so I got more than you. Outside of the referral, do you do any external marketing? I know you do. You have some philanthropic and some charitable, things that tie into the business. But do you do billboards? Do you pay for any other advertising?
I do not.
That's the answer I was looking for.
Yeah. And people are amazed by that, right? Because they're like, how much money do you put into your marketing per year to yield the results that you do? And honestly, outside of salaries that I pay employees and so forth, our marketing dollars is absolutely minimal in comparison to our income. I mean, my business expense per month, right, and this is taking salaries into it and so forth, is less than 16%, monthly, right, of our, and that's because I get to work by referrals, because if I was paying for leads and, using these organics, I could be up closer to 60%.
One of the coolest things that you're saying when you're saying that is your numbers and you know those percentages like the back of your hand. And a lot of financial advisors don't get that granular into their business because they're really, really talented at meeting and talking and in the investment, and they forget about the business side.
Because they're trying to knock on doors. They're trying to find the expired listings. They're trying to find the for sale by owners versus working on your business, in your business.
And the reality is it's right there in front of them, right? And a lot of people just don't know that.
That right there is a perfect spot to wrap this episode. Brian Huff, thank you so much for being on this podcast. Travis, thank you for being here as well. But Brian, wow, you are the first person not directly tied to our industry that has come in, but this was like a master class. So thank you so much. If you do need to look for a house here in the Kansas City area, the 5-state area, I'm going to have your thing in the, we'll put it in the comments. Yeah. But for everybody else, as we wrap this up, of course, you can watch this episode on YouTube. You can watch this episode on Spotify and Apple, or you can just do the audio on anywhere else that you prefer to consume your podcast. And whilst you're doing that, feel free to like, subscribe, and then that way you always know whenever we drop a fresh episode. And then again, I love comments, I love constructive criticism, and I love suggestions, and I will respond to all comments. So, gentlemen, thanks for being here. This was awesome.
Yeah, happy to be here. And remember, never too busy for your real estate referrals.
This podcast is for financial professional use only and not for use with the general public. The information provided is the exclusive property of CreativeOne and is protected by copyright and other intellectual property laws of the United States. This material has been prepared for informational and educational purposes only. It is not intended to provide, and should not be relied upon for, accounting, legal, tax or investment advice. CreativeOne is not responsible for the results of programs discussed on this podcast or any liability stemming from the use of it. Although we may promote or recommend the services offered by this company, agents are ultimately responsible for the use of any materials or services and agree to comply with the compliance requirements of their broker-dealer and registered investment advisor, if applicable, and the insurance carriers they represent. Copyright 2022, CreativeOne Marketing Corporation.